Rachel Zegler's public meltdown over Disney's new Snow White remake has taken the internet by storm, especially now that the film has shockingly flopped at the box office.
The movie that nobody wanted to see, and I mean that seriously, nobody wants to see this movie. Ticket pre-sales are nowhere near what Disney was hoping for. Let's just say if you wanted to buy tickets for the 9 p.m. show tonight, wherever you are in America, you'd be just fine.
For months, fans anticipated a fresh spin on a classic tale, convinced that Disney's latest live-action project would be a surefire hit. After all, the idea of revisiting the company's very first animated feature felt like a guaranteed recipe for success.
This movie's cost them $200 million and counting, and instead of America being excited to take their families, I've got kids, we'd normally be excited to go see the remake of Bashful, Doc, Dopey, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, and Sneezy. Disney is looking at another woke flop with magical creatures instead of dwarves in a movie about 7 dwarves.
Yet, as soon as the movie premiered, it became clear that something had gone horribly wrong. Audiences stayed away in droves, critics pounced on every perceived misstep, and the controversy surrounding Rachel's comments about the original 1937 film reached a breaking point. Suddenly, what should have been a fairy tale success story crumbled into a cultural flashpoint. How did we get here? Why did Rachel's passionate defense of her vision backfire so spectacularly? And more importantly, is there any way for her or the movie to recover now that the backlash has reached a fever pitch? One glance at social media tells you everything you need to know. Clips from interviews, memes ridiculing the new plot, and hashtags calling the movie a flop are everywhere. Fans once excited to relive the magic of Snow White are now questioning Disney's approach and blaming Rachel for what they view as disrespect toward a beloved classic. What began as an idealistic attempt to modernize a dated story has devolved into the year's most talked about scandal. Whether you're someone who's followed the hype from day one or just now tuning in, there's no denying that Rachel's defiance, the film's catastrophic opening weekend, and the toxic atmosphere surrounding it all have transformed this project into a cautionary tale for Hollywood. It's easy to think this happened overnight, but the turmoil has actually been brewing for months. Ever since production details first leaked, unconventional takes on the dwarves, a female-led reinterpretation of the storyline, people started voicing concerns. The real turning point, however, didn't come until the press interviews started rolling out. That's when Rachel's offhand remarks lit the match that would eventually engulf both the actress and the film in a firestorm of criticism. Now that the dust is settling, or perhaps still swirling, the question remains: where does she go from here? And does this controversy point to a larger issue in how today's Hollywood tries to remake the past? When word first spread that Disney was planning a live-action adaptation of Snow White, reactions were mixed. Some fans saw it as a beautiful homage to the film that launched the studio's animated dynasty back in 1937. Others worried that the magic would be diluted by updates designed for a modern audience. A big-budget remake often carries the weight of decades of nostalgia, and Snow White holds a special place in Disney lore. It wasn't just another cartoon, it was the first of its kind, a movie that pioneered the concept of a full-length animated feature. Disney, keen on proving its mastery of remakes, set about assembling a star-studded team. Rachel Zegler, riding high on the accolades from her performance in West Side Story, seemed poised for a breakout moment. She was young, talented, and charismatic, at least according to early interviews. Better yet, she had a knack for vocal performance, a critical asset for a musical role like Snow White. On paper, it looked like a slam dunk. The studio's hype machine began churning out teasers about empowering updates and fresh perspectives, promising an innovative twist on the old formula. Still, whispers about changing too much crept in. Devoted Disney fans, who treasure the original romance, the comedic dwarfs, and the iconic soundtrack, grew uneasy about all the talk of reinventing tradition. Rumors swirled that the prince had been all but removed from the storyline, and that the dwarfs were being replaced or heavily altered. Instead of setting hearts aflutter, these rumors sparked questions. Was this going to be a completely new movie wearing the costume of a classic? Could rewriting Snow White alienate those who treasure the original's sweet innocence? Even so, Disney pressed forward. Early promotional images promised a more empowered princess and a vibrant visual world. Press releases highlighted how the new version would honor the classic while introducing modern values, a statement both applauded by progressive audiences and viewed warily by purists. In many ways, the stage was set for a cultural showdown. People on social media began drawing their lines in the sand, those who crave a progressive retelling on one side, and those who see the original as untouchable on the other. But that was only the beginning. Shortly after filming wrapped, Rachel started making her press rounds. Initially, she seemed enthusiastic, sharing how she'd grown up loving Disney musicals and feeling honored to take on such a historic role. But as the questioning turned more pointed, particularly about the original film's content, her tone shifted. That's when the controversy truly ignited. For many, the downward spiral began with one interview. In a candid back and forth, Rachel casually referred to the 1937 classic as weird, citing moments she found problematic or outdated. She went on to emphasize that her Snow White was no damsel in distress, no starry-eyed girl longing for a prince. Instead, she would be a self-reliant leader focused on her own ambitions. To Rachel, it seemed like a logical step forward, a reflection of modern storytelling where female characters often embody empowerment and independence. The reaction, however, was immediate and fierce. Countless fans felt her words came off as dismissive, even mocking, of an era-defining piece of animation. Disney loyalists, some old enough to have watched the original with their parents or grandparents, took it personally. Online forums lit up with debates over whether Snow White even needed a modern spin. One faction cheered Rachel for wanting to break free from the older film's problematic elements, while another argued that her stance disrespected the charm that had made Snow White endure for generations. In interviews that followed, Rachel doubled down, seeming unafraid to call out what she saw as creepy or stalker-like moments in the original. Her directness, while refreshingly candid, inadvertently fed the narrative that she disliked or looked down on classic Disney stories. Compounding this issue were subtle jabs about the prince. Some joked that he might be cut from the film entirely, because in her words, "It's Hollywood, baby, and things can change." These sound bites ricocheted across social media, quickly morphing into memes that portrayed Rachel as arrogant, ungrateful, or out of touch. To some viewers, it felt like she was ridiculing a cherished piece of cinematic history. Others tried to contextualize her remarks as an actress simply excited to adapt an older story for a new generation. Yet once a public figure becomes a magnet for negative press, every word, every gesture, and every facial expression can be weaponized. That's precisely what happened to Rachel. Clips of her interviews, edited for maximum impact, spread on TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. Fans dissected her body language. Critics slammed her entitled attitude. It was as though each new interview gave skeptics fresh ammunition. And then came the box office numbers, where the real shock began. Disney, known for its marketing prowess, scrambled to shift the public conversation. Trailers featuring high production values were released, along with images highlighting dazzling costumes and grand musical numbers. The hope was that talk of controversy would be drowned out by spectacle. Unfortunately, it only did so much to quell the tide of online debate. By the time the film approached its release date, curiosity was overshadowed by skepticism. Despite the swirl of discourse, many in Hollywood still expected Snow White to pull decent numbers. Even with a divided fan base, Disney's live-action remakes tend to generate attention at the box office. Recent adaptations like The Little Mermaid, which also faced vocal criticism, still opened strongly. Early projections for Snow White hovered between $70 to $90 million for the domestic opening, a respectable figure, though not earth-shattering, for a film reportedly costing over $200 million to make. Then reality hit, and the opening weekend was a mere $45 million domestically. The shortfall stunned industry insiders. Some labeled it Disney's biggest miscalculation in years, noting that the Snow White brand alone should have guaranteed a higher turnout. Others blamed franchise fatigue, claiming audiences had simply grown tired of the constant remakes. But among everyday moviegoers and critics online, the blame centered squarely on Rachel Zegler. The hashtag #SnowFlop trended across social platforms, accompanied by dissection of every alleged misstep in the film, from the toned-down Prince storyline to awkward comedic sequences that fans saw as disrespectful to the original dwarves. Some singled out Rachel's interviews, insisting her attitude had soured them on the project altogether. There were even those who celebrated the poor opening, tweeting gleefully about the movie's failure. "This is what happens," they wrote, "when you disrespect a classic." While Hollywood watchers tried to analyze the film's slump from various angles, poor timing, lackluster trailers, brand overreach, the simplest explanation resonated most. General audiences just didn't connect with this new version of Snow White. Critics tore it apart for a disjointed script and forgettable music. Fans who did buy tickets left theaters feeling underwhelmed. Theater chains started to drop the film from premium screens as more lucrative titles arrived. Within its second week, Snow White was relegated to smaller, less desirable showtimes. The numbers only continued to slump. What happened next turned a bad situation into a full-on implosion. As the film's chances for a financial rebound diminished, attention pivoted back to Rachel. Disney's PR team could only do so much, and she was quickly becoming the scapegoat for the entire fiasco. Gossip columns ran pieces quoting sources who claimed her attitude on set had been difficult. Social media accounts dredged up older quotes, painting a picture of a star who had become too big for her own good. Whether these claims held any truth, the narrative had solidified. Rachel Zegler was the face of a flop. Frustration had been building for weeks. Rachel faced a daily onslaught of angry posts, harsh critiques, and mocking memes. Most celebrities in her position would be advised to step back, keep a low profile, or release a carefully worded statement acknowledging the backlash. But Rachel chose a different route. She took to social media and recorded a heartfelt, candid video from her bedroom. In the video, later described as a meltdown by detractors, she appeared both defiant and on the verge of tears. She spoke about the countless hateful messages she'd received, describing the mental toll it was taking. She compared her work to famous sculptures coming to museums in pieces, hoping people would still line up to see her despite her imperfections. The intention seemed to be to humanize herself and reclaim some dignity amid the chaos. Instead, clips from the video were rapidly reposted with mocking captions. One snippet, where she declared that people still line up for her work, became the butt of countless jokes. "Line up to see what?" naysayers asked, pointing to the abysmal box office numbers. Rather than sparking empathy, the video was seen by many as an out-of-touch plea. Comment sections erupted with cynicism. "I can't believe she still thinks she's the victim," read one viral tweet. TikTokers created satire videos showing empty lines, waiting for the new Snow White, or sarcastically pretending to line up outside a theater with no tickets sold. Every corner of the internet seemed to have an opinion on Rachel's meltdown. And the more the clips spread, the more the narrative hardened. People who had been neutral or unaware of the situation suddenly felt compelled to comment, often repeating the same talking point. She brought this on herself. But even that wasn't the worst of it. Hollywood itself was about to weigh in. As social media feasted on her vulnerability, the industry began to take notice. Disney executives, once keen on championing Rachel as a fresh, outspoken voice for a new generation, became notably quiet. High-level meetings were reportedly held to figure out damage control strategies, but it was like trying to plug a sinking ship with a single cork. The meltdown had gone too viral, and the movie's box office fate was all but sealed. Any hope of redemption was pinned on the film's presence during awards season. Though few believed Snow White would garner significant nominations, Disney still had a scheduled appearance for visual effects recognition. Rachel and co-star Gal Gadot were invited to present an award at a high-profile ceremony. This was supposed to be a picture-perfect moment, two strong women representing the legacy of a beloved fairy tale. Instead, viewers witnessed one of the most awkward red carpet pairings of the year. Gal Gadot, known for her global success as a former pageant queen and beloved superhero, walked alongside Rachel with a polite smile that never reached her eyes. Body language experts had a field day analyzing the distance between them, noting how Gal seemed to stiffen whenever Rachel spoke. The tension was palpable. While Gal was all about breezy small talk, Rachel seemed defensive and tired, as if she knew the world was watching for the slightest misstep. Their onstage banter felt forced, and once it was over, Gal exited swiftly, leaving Rachel standing alone under the flashing lights. Behind the scenes, rumors flew. Insiders claimed Gal had grown frustrated by the film's negative publicity, wanting to protect her own brand from association with the fiasco. Others insisted the two women never really got along, and any initial friendship had soured under the stress of the production's challenges. Whatever the real story, it was clear that Rachel could no longer rely on her co-star for public support. And behind the scenes, the fallout was even more brutal. Any illusions that the film might see a late surge in popularity evaporated. Industry parties buzzed about the fiasco, with executives from various studios wondering if Rachel's outspokenness made her too risky to cast. Former advocates started hedging their bets, refusing to publicly defend her. It was the kind of silence that speaks volumes in Hollywood. In the weeks following the disastrous release, the snowball effect only grew. Early reports emerged that a handful of Rachel's upcoming projects were now under review, as one insider put it. Studios that had been courting her, hoping to capitalize on her youth and vocal prowess, were left to question whether audiences would show up if her name was on the marquee. It's a harsh reality in the entertainment business. You're only as valuable as your last box office performance. And Snow White had not just underperformed, it had failed spectacularly. Though it's difficult for an outsider to fully grasp the complexities of Hollywood politics, the signs were everywhere. Marketing budgets slashed, development deals quietly canceled, and roles that might have gone to Rachel a year ago seemingly offered to other actresses. Casting directors prefer bankable stars, and the stink of a high-profile flop can linger for years. Coupled with the hostility she faced online, Rachel's reputation rapidly transitioned from promising newcomer to cautionary tale. Agents, managers, and publicists scrambled to contain the damage, no doubt brainstorming strategies to rehabilitate her image. Were they planning an official apology? A heartfelt interview on a popular talk show? A philanthropic angle to soften her persona? Thus far, none of it has materialized in a way that resonates with mainstream audiences. Complicating matters is the fact that once you lose the goodwill of the Disney fan base, it's incredibly difficult to win it back. Many fans feel personally betrayed. Snow White isn't just another Disney title, it's the original princess story that set the template for everything that followed. Tampering with it is one thing, outright deriding it is another. Even fans who like modern twists have expressed dismay at how the adaptation turned out, pointing to the script's heavy-handed changes and the questionable marketing strategies that accompanied them. Hollywood can be forgiving to those who stage a comeback with authenticity and humility. The question is whether Rachel can pivot in that direction. So far, she has shown more defiance than remorse, more frustration than openness. She rarely addresses the backlash with an admission that perhaps her tone contributed to the problem. Instead, she has seemed determined to prove she did nothing wrong, that the haters simply don't understand her vision. Unfortunately, that stance may keep her stuck on the outside, looking in. But the real question is whether there's any chance for a comeback. Forgiveness in Hollywood is not impossible. Stars have recovered from controversies, box office bombs, and social media missteps. It often takes one role in a sleeper hit, an Oscar-worthy performance, or a well-received public apology to turn the tide. However, it typically requires a level of self-awareness and contrition that resonates with the general public. Right now, it's unclear if Rachel is ready to take those steps, or if she still believes her critics are simply being unfair. For more of the latest news, check out this video.